Suddenly, this little kid's mother turned into a terrorist. And now this land wants to devour her own blooming child. Meanwhile, people in the city are also behaving strangely, apparently due to some special reason. Everyone in the city has become infected, so the city will be blown up with bombs. The story begins from an island called Peacock in Canada, which is located near the city of Montreal. The island is so remote that there is no way to reach it without a boat bridge, and since it's the season of ice, snow has covered everything around. On this island, we see some people from a biotech company who have applied a special fertilizer in the playground so that the grass stays fresh like snow and they can continue to play all year round. The people were dressed in a particular type of clothing. Then we see a man named John, who works as a security guard on this island's land. John's wife has died, but he has a daughter who works in the biotech company. But I always worry about how we humans have leaned too much towards technology nowadays, that this habit will one day put us in great danger, so we should always be prepared to adapt if everything changes at any moment. And if people go back to the primitive Stone Age to fit into that era, John often listens to the radio, where they talk about government activities and the powerful people, and the host of this show is named Patrick. So as usual, John goes on patrol in his car around the city. Just then, suddenly, a small boy on a bicycle crosses in front of him and he narrowly escapes an accident. Then when he tells the boy that using a phone while riding a bicycle isn't wise, an accident could still happen, but the boy passes John by. Ignoring, he just walks away, then let it be John. He loved his daughter Patricia very much, and every day, calling his daughter twice was his everyday routine. On the other hand, we see the little boy who was riding a bicycle in front of John's car. This boy's name, Daniel. Daniel lives with his mother and 6-month-old sister. Since Daniel's mother leaves her little sister for work, he now trustfully takes care of her, but sometimes when the faith is not there, Daniel has to look after all his sister's needs. Although he doesn't like doing all this work, on the other hand, we see John, who after finishing work comes home in party mood. Then he puts something in his car, and then we see he has many items stored in his car that he has stockpiled in advance for surviving hard days. Actually, between his work breaks, he stores such items in his car. Then he drives home, and upon returning, he finds Patricia hasn't come home yet. So then John goes to the basement and tries to light a fire the old-fashioned way. But despite many attempts, the fire does not ignite. So at one point, John takes out a bullet from his gun and lights the fire with it, but due to his foolishness, his face gets scorched and his eyebrows burnt. So then much later, when Patricia returns home, she starts laughing upon seeing the state of her father's eyebrows. The next morning, we find their babysitter has not yet arrived to go to the city, and because of this, Daniel has to take care of the little girl all day. For Daniel, this wasn't a very tough job. Actually, taking care of little children is never an easy task. Meanwhile, we see again, today a wealthy person named Louis has come to the golf field with his locket. Then Michael welcomes them very nicely. Actually, Michael is a suitable employee for these 12 companies at the beginning of this story. But we had seen biotech company people were spreading fertilizer over that golf field. Actually, these people were all defeated by the person named Louis. Today, he is very happy to play golf with his brother, surrounded by ice fish. Everyone enjoys seeing fields surrounded by fresh green grass. It is then noticed that the people from that biotech company had completely spread chemicals over the grass down to the soil, and strangely, like a virus, it rapidly spreads around, even reaching the waters of Chemical Island. While on the other side, we see Daniel struggling to handle his sister at home. Meanwhile, we spot a man from the island at the market buying vegetables. But before coming there, he drank water from his house. Actually, the water everyone on the island drinks comes from the city's filtration system, and that water is used in households for everything from cooking to drinking. Suddenly, while at the market, the man starts to feel strange and gets a call to return home without delay. Upon reaching home, his teeth suddenly turned green, shocking him into cleaning them, and his eyes began turning green, and within seconds, he completely turned into a plant. Just then, they call him from Assam, hearing voices. He hurries to Assam, where he is horrifically bitten and killed by others within moments, and in a growing state, he dies. As the scene changes, we see Louis, Michael, and Kate returning to the restaurant when all employees start running towards them. But before they could understand, a dog attacks Kate. The dog had also turned into a plant, and there were two other employees who had already turned into plants. Amidst the terrible situation, Lewis and Michael managed to get inside the restaurant and lock the door because Kate Winslet had turned from a dog bite. They leave her outside and come in to blockade the door and see that a whole group of zombies has come outside and is trying hard to enter. Meanwhile, in a gap, the dog bites Lewis too, which turns him into a plant, and Michael, finding no way out, takes his own life. For that, from there, trying to escape, on the other hand, we see that he stops his car in front of a house, actually calls an elderly woman to come here for John. Reaching there, the woman comes and tells him that every day his neighbor listens to music loudly, but today, some strange noise is coming from their house. When John is about to check it out, he heads towards his neighbor's house. In between, suddenly the woman turns into a piece of land and starts chasing John to kill him, but John somehow gets into a car and all the surrounding lands. They all come to attack John, but they can't get into the car. When for help, tries to communicate with many, but he can't control them in any way after that. Shweta's daughter sends a voice message saying the situation around is very frightening. Be ready, I am coming to take you. Actually, at that time, Patricia was at the biotech company. We see today that Daniel's mother did not go to office. She often scolds Daniel's sister for not drinking water, actually. Daniel rarely drinks water. He usually drinks cold drinks instead of water. Actually, nowadays, everyone prefers cold drinks over water. Daniel was then talking to his mother, and in the meantime, suddenly Daniel's mother turns into a terrorist and attacks her own son by chasing him. Daniel, in fear, starts running away from home. But suddenly a water truck arrives and then hits the car. Knocks him down. He gets seriously injured, but still tries to attack there a lot. Daniel keeps moving forward to save his mother. When then, he forbids, and just then a few, if they are approaching them. Seeing this, he quickly takes a car and goes there, but Daniel then takes his mother, somehow comes home and very cleverly shuts the door. Meanwhile, everyone around turns into zombies. The whole city spreads out, causing the entire island to be quarantined. In the meantime, Daniel locks his mother in the washroom. Right then, another land tries to attack their house, but Daniel somehow is able to chase it away from there. Actually, zombies start moving towards the sound of people. Although the channel was a bit big, it was always quiet, but his little sister's cry of fear ran across the fields in Bandel. He tried to stop her crying in various ways. Daniel's idea worked, and thus a night passed, and the next morning when Daniel looks out the window, he sees that militants are roaming around their house, meaning now there's no chance for him to go outside. Daniel tries to take his mother out from the 8th floor, but suddenly the TV in their room falls on her head, and due to severe injury, Daniel's mother dies right there. Then Daniel somehow takes his sister and leaves the house, but the militants around their home start chasing them. After that, Daniel somehow reaches in front of a nearby supermarket. John just opens the door and drags them inside. Earlier, John was also hiding there because of the militants. Arriving there, Daniel sees that John's daughter Patricia has turned into a zombie, so he locked her in a fridge. On the other hand, we see Michael sitting in a restaurant on the phone trying to get rid of the virus. Soon he's informed that the protocol will eradicate everything. We see Daniel and John when Daniel says that we should stay in this market for now because there's enough food, but I can't stay here much longer. There were 12 petri dishes where they were discussing militants from the island. John calls for help, and Patrick says no one from the island will be saved because if the virus spreads to the city, it would cause great harm. When it is said that many people like me on the island are still not infected, but Patrick says that the people of the island could spread the infection somehow. Hearing this, Daniel gets more frustrated and says if you want to save your brother, you first have to find out how this virus spread, and you have to find out the cure for this virus, considering that the virus could have spread from water all this time. Daniel agrees because he never drinks water indeed. But he is not infected now, and at this moment it is impossible to get out of the island. Because all the boards that were there, the government has closed all the alleys, and the water of that island was so cold that anyone who enters that water will be in bad condition. And the only way out, the bridge, has been tightly closed. And the government could destroy the island at any time to ensure that the virus does not spread easily for saving their own lives. And John must somehow get out of that island after. The next day we saw two girls who were actually working for a secret organization. They already knew what was going on in the island. They came here and shot several lands around, and then they came to the restaurant where Michael was. Then Michael thinks maybe they have come to save them, so Michael tells them that I have burned all the documents now. You take your part of fertilization and change the grass on the ground immediately. Actually, those girls had brought medication for infection. Michael wants to see those. And taking this opportunity, those girls force him to eat fertilization, which results in Michael also getting infected. Immediately, those two girls deploy vaccines in the playground, which kills all the infections there the next morning. Taking Daniel and Patricia gets out first, they come to the Orchids office so that they can stop the supply of contaminated water in the whole city, so that no new human land can be infected with the virus. But it turns out that Patricia runs from there and jumps into the water. But there was another terrible land, but surprisingly it does not harm Patricia. Meanwhile, her father starts pulling her from the ground to lift Patricia, and finally, one of her hands gets torn. So then, for any reason, they all get back in the car and come to this restaurant. But after coming to the restaurant looking for Daniel nowhere, he notices that the cut dog's body has completely changed to grass, but by then his breathing was still going on. The other hand, John enters the restaurant, and there he sees two time bombs. Actually, those girls were leaving from here at that time. The bomb was set up, and it was more than all viruses. In the dimension where the man ends here, turn land into land, make the land perfect, before John activated the bomb. When they realized that the bombs they left were still blunt, no, they continued to walk towards the restaurant. And then they came in and bought toxic chemicals. The baby ate Meta, but that's when Danielle left. But that, Maddie then surrounded him and they took Danielle. Eat starter, but between the two enders. Cut off a man's finger, turned into a zombie. Swallowing them turned them into land. After a while, May shot the two themselves. John turned to land because of infection. Danielle is not here to attack Danielle because Danielle is cold. His sister is the one who understands opportunities on the other side. Break one of the balls, and Annie smells it. Then Daniel locked John up and got any clues. When they saw Daniel, it was quite interesting there. Military planes have arrived, and Daniel thinks it's them. The reason why they came to help is that they are them. Everything that didn't get anything ahead shot the bomb. Uyir said he saw the situation without Roktam. When he came here from Paley, his sister Anne was just like before. People are. Because one day, the ball... See the other side. The millionaires walked into the restaurant at once. Reach out and put John in the fire. Daniel hugged his sister in the bay by the river. I saw Daniel coming from Kenny in a boat river. Tell them to stop pointing and give it to the city. Started going that way, but that's when we saw that intersection in Paris is still walking near Daniel's. Gaita threw it into the river for this, and won, as Master bit him, into a cornfield, Armin's virus. Not only on the island, but in the snow pubs all over the city. At the end of the story, we see an interview place. Gomin is drinking a cup of coffee, no matter what is in it. The logo of Bartok Company was installed to mean now. They plan to move this virus to the whole world no longer. That's the end of our story for today.